Hi, good morning. This is Tristan with Translation Exchange. I just want to welcome everybody to the webinar. We're going to give it just another minute here as we have a few more people joining us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Tristan. I'm the Director of Sales here at Translation Exchange. Joining us as well, we also have Jonas Kessler, who's our Director of Business Development. He's going to be giving a quick overview of Translation Exchange. And then we also have Michael Berkovich as well, who's our CEO and founder, and he'll be giving you a demo of Translation Exchange with WordPress. Jonas, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great, thanks a lot, Tristan. And thanks everybody for being able to join us today. I know everybody's schedules are different, so if at some point you have to leave early, or if you have colleagues that aren't going to be able to start, on time, and won't come until a little bit later, we're going to go ahead and send out a recording of the video via email to all registers. So don't worry about that. If for some reason or not you miss, a few minutes, we'll make sure to get you the full video here a little bit later on today. But again, thanks for the introduction, Tristan. And just to give a little bit of background here. The company itself, Translation Exchange, we're now about 2 years old. Again, it was founded by two gentlemen, both Michael Berkovich and Ian McDaniel. The two of them had actually worked together as engineers for a few companies based in the Los Angeles area here in California. They worked both for a company called Genie, as well as a company called Yammer, which has since been acquired by Microsoft. But the two of them were tasked with localizing both those companies' entire websites and product suites up into about 70 different languages. Needless to say, it was an enormous project, a huge learning experience, and what they discovered with the solution that they developed was that it would have a lot of value, not only for just those companies, but pretty much any company out there who is at the stage of really trying to create a more efficient system to localize their content, or if they're just breaking out into localization and translation, create a solution that can get them to their goals as cost efficiently and as quickly as possible. Now, for anybody who's ever dealt with translations, of course, it's pretty easy if you've got something on a Microsoft Word document. All you have to do is go ahead and email that to your translation agency. They'll translate it and send it back to you. Of course, this is 2017, and as we all know, content exists in so many more places than just Microsoft Word documents. You've got everything from your web CMSs like WordPress, which we'll be discussing today, as well as, of course, demand generation email campaign software, even down to social media and HR and help desk. And it's a very difficult challenge to actually be able to localize that content. It's not as easy as just sending one document. You'd have to cut, copy, and paste code. There's a lot of heavy lifting and manual labor involved. You take that code and maybe you're uploading it to an FTP file like a Drive box or Google Dropbox. I'm sorry, Google Drive or Dropbox. You're emailing things back and forth with translators across the world. It makes communication very, very difficult. And certainly, humans are prone to making mistakes. So if you copy and paste one line of code, or you forget one punctuation mark, it can really create a log jam and inhibit your ability to get any projects out in a timely fashion. So what the solution was that both Michael and Ian came up with was developing a set of API integrations and SDKs, or software development kits, with just a few clicks of a button. Instead of all that copying and pasting, all that manual labor is now eliminated. And you can simply choose where your source file is. It gets wrapped up into a translatable friendly format, we'll say XLIF or XML. You get to select the languages that you want, the agency that you want to do it, and the deadlines, and then you can send it off to the translation vendor for translation. Then they would send it back, and with just a few more clicks of a button, it goes right back into where that content exists. So no more cumbersome and messy and kind of a cat's cradle of a logjam with all the cut, copying, and pasting. It really does reduce the time roughly by about 60 to 70% or more in terms of how long it ordinarily takes that content to get to market. So it's a huge time and cost saver as well. Now, in terms of the stacks that we've been building out, it's a fairly dated slide here. We've actually, to date, come out with close to about 60 integrations, I believe. On the marketing end of things, you'd be looking at everything from e-commerce platforms, like the Shopifys and Magentos, marketing automation, Marketos, Eloquas, MailChimps of the world, even social networks and content management systems like obviously WordPress, Drupal, Sitecore, Adobe. On the enterprise stack of things, you'll find everything from GitHub connectors, HR management, knowledge base, document management, even sales and customer service like Zendesk and Desk. It's a fairly customer-driven roadmap. I will say that we're an extremely agile and nimble development team on this end, and usually they're cranking out new integrations at the rate of about once every week or two. But again, it is fairly customer-driven, so if there's a customer out there that has a specific need or desire to get a particular integration built, we can discuss that offline, and a lot of times we can expedite it and move it to the top of the roadmap. So we're very, I guess, agile in that sense. We'll probably have about 100 integrations out by the end of the year. And if there's something specific that any of the viewers out there have in mind that they would like us to look at, we're more than happy to discuss that offline. In terms of the translation agencies that we work with and vendors in general, I'll preface this by saying, of course, we are not a translation agency itself. We don't do any of the actual translation work on this end. We're 100% vendor agnostic, and we have no financial stake in who the client uses to get the translations done. Now, our platform can utilize two different types of translation, obviously both the machine and professional. Machine translation engines, for any of you out there who've used them, it's not up to par yet. It's probably about 5 to 10 years away from being anywhere near as accurate as professional human translators. But of course, it's still there for those quick, small, short projects. Maybe you have 1 or 2 sentences that need to get translated quickly, and perhaps you have an in-house translator or a native speaker available that can review it and just make sure that it looks accurate before it goes to market. But of course, for those more important projects, the websites, the web pages on WordPress, or very important demand generation email campaign blasts, you're going to want to have a professional translator look that over. We're currently working with about a dozen or so human translation agencies out there. And again, because we're vendor agnostic, now the client has a few different options to get the translations done. If they're already working with an agency that they're happy with, they're happy with the pricing, they're happy with the quality of work, we're not here to twist their arm and convince them to use anybody else. That same agency can be onboarded and trained in the same onboarding phone call as the client. Usually within an hour or so, they'll get all the information and login details needed to be able to receive those projects and communicate within the platform. Now, if a client is brand new to translation, or even if they've been doing it for years and they want to test the market, see if perhaps they're getting a little bit overcharged, or maybe there's somebody out there who has a specialty for a particular language pair, or maybe if it's even geographic proximity, right? Maybe they want a company that they can drive to or walk to and be able to speak to these people in person. So they can actually upload that content into the software. They can choose the languages, choose the deadlines, and then allow Translation Exchange to pick up to 3 different agencies that can compete for the client's business. So the agencies would get that metadata, and then within a few hours or so, the client would get a few different emails, and they can choose the most appropriate agency to fit their needs, again, based on either quality, cost, specific language pair, or even geolocation. So there's a lot of options and methods to get that content translated. Now, we do also utilize a shared translation memory database. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of translation memory, it's a pretty simple idea. It's basically nothing more than a bank or a library of previously translated terms and phrases that can be leveraged at a later stage to save you time and money on new projects. So the idea is that once you've translated something once, you should never have to pay to get it translated again. And obviously, with web pages and email campaigns, there's going to be a lot of repeatable content in there. So certainly you don't want to have to pay to get that translated anew each time. But the idea is that the more and more translation projects you do, and the more this translation memory grows and builds within our platform, subsequent projects are going to take less and less time and actually cost you less. So it's a great way, again, to help shave down significantly on time and cost associated with getting those campaigns out. In terms of some of the companies that have adopted our platform recently, you'll kind of see we run the gamut here from large and small. Probably the most recognizable logo that you'll find will be the GoPro logo. Of course, they're the ones that make those cool cameras that you can go on adventures underwater with. Jiff as well is a very large international medical health benefits provider, both servicing large and small companies. Now, I would say in America, obviously, it's going to be a little less important for the smaller companies to adopt this technology. It's going to be more geared towards the mid-market to enterprise-sized companies, because let's face it, you can do business in America for years and years. There's enough potential business here where more often than not, you're not going to have to translate very much outside of American English. Of course, once you're at that once you're at that stage of scaling, you're going to want to reach out into other markets like in EMEA and in APAC. And of course, to do that, you're going to need to install a process that can streamline it and get you there as quickly as possible. In Europe, it's going to be really geared towards everybody. Certainly the small companies, as we all know in Europe, if you drive just 30 minutes in any direction, usually you're going to hit another language market. So it's really critical that even the small brand new companies start to get their marketing materials and messages out to as broad of an audience as possible, or else they're leaving a lot of money on the table. It's really difficult to do business in just one language in Europe these days. But again, we have a one-size-kind-of-fits-all solution for any needs, be it large or small. Any company who is really feeling the pain in the process needs to create a more efficient way of localizing their content, or trying to break out into larger and larger markets. That's really what Translation Exchange was created for. In either event, that is pretty much the end from my end. Before I pass the ball off to Michael here for the demo, I'll let you know also that we're going to open the floor up for some questions at the end of this webinar. So if you have anything on the top of your mind, please, if you wouldn't mind just holding off until we're done with the demo, and then we'll make sure to run through all those questions and see if we can get answers to all you guys. Thanks, though, and I'll go ahead and pass the ball off to my colleague, Michael, and he's going to show you what we've been working on with WordPress.
Yes, thank you, Tristan and Jonas, for the introduction, and thanks to everybody who joined our webinar today. Let me share my screen right now, just 1 second. Okay, can you see my screen? Great. So,
yes, you're good.
Good, thanks. So, we, as Jonas mentioned, we offer quite a few different type of integrations, starting from website builder tools to integrations with the marketing email systems. You can find a lot of information about what we support and different features of our system in our documentation center. There is quite a long list of different plugins that we have today. In this demo, we'll just focus on our integration with WordPress. So I have a simple website set up here, and you'll be able to actually access it. It's publicly available, polylanguagetranslationexchange.com. This website currently is set up to just be available in only English, and we will add a few more languages to it, translate it, and publish it with the Translation Exchange platform. So let me go inside into the administration of the site. The only plugin I currently installed and haven't activated is Translation Exchange plugin. So you can find it in the plugin section when you click on Add New and search for Translation Exchange. The plugin will come up. Find it. You can do it in 1 word or 2 words. Here's the plugin. You simply activate the plugin, and it will appear in your list of plugins here. Let me activate it myself. Once it's active, you should be able to access the settings of the plugin by clicking the settings section. Or it also appears under the settings Translation Exchange menu here. Now, this plugin comes in 2 different kind of modes. You can either use our own solution, which if you use this, if you can use and use the Translation Exchange option, we offer a JavaScript-based solution which basically adds a few scripts to your website and can localize and translate your website in the browser. So that's what's called a kind of like a render time translation. So we will automatically scan through all the strings, pull all the content out, synchronize with our platform, allow you to do the translations, publishing translations, and everything through the settings here. But in this demo, I want to show you something that I'll use the Polylang plugin instead. That's the second mode. And it's mode actually very similar to WPML, Polylang, or QTranslateX. So if you already happen to use any one of those plugins, Polylang and QTranslateX are free. WPML has an entry cost. So if you already use one of those plugins, you can use our system. So simply install a plugin and use it on top to communicate with those plugins. So what we actually do, if you happen to have Polylang, we extend them. So that basically means, actually there's a link right here that describes how it works. Let me show you a little bit. So what we do, we added an API layer on top of those plugins that communicate with our platform. It requires an extra step of setting things up, but it's very easy, and I'll show you right now how to do it. And then what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to still use, for instance, Polylang to host and show your translated content in WordPress. At the same time, use our platform for translation memory use, for placing orders with through our marketing system, and using the workflow automations as well. So to activate our plugin with Polylang, you can click on, unless you already have the Polylang installed, you can click on install and activate right here. This will automatically download the plugin, and I'm going to activate Polylang right from here as well. So now you see that we have Translation Exchange plugin and Polylang plugin. Now, as soon as the Polylang plugin is installed, and if you go back now again to settings of Translation Exchange, our system will realize that the Polylang plugin is available. So it sees that there is a direct integration now between Translation Exchange and Polylang, and give you some additional instructions right here, including the video. You can actually watch the video of how everything works, but gives you just additional instructions of what you need to do on Translation Exchange in order to activate this joint configuration. So let me actually go through the steps. So I already have an account with Translation Exchange, and I actually already happen to create a project. You can easily click on this link. It will take you to the setup sign up page, where it just will ask you for a few pieces of information about you, your email and password, and you'll set up an account, and then you can create a project. Now, we allow you to create any number of projects on your account. So for instance, if you have multiple WordPress installations or you have mobile apps, for every one of those apps, you can have a separate project. At the same time, as Jonas mentioned, we have a smart joint translation memory, which allows to share translations between multiple projects of yours. So you'll be able to reuse translations across all the systems that you use. And then, so now that I have an account and I have a project, let me go to our dashboard. So this is what the dashboard looks like. I've created a project called Tracks for Polylang, and currently the project is empty. If I go to the string section here, string is basically, it's a list of the original strings that were pulled out from your WordPress installation. The list of strings is empty here. Source is also empty. What we call sources, basically, sources are groupings of all various strings. In this case, when we work with the WordPress and Polylang, for us a source is an article. It can be an article, a page, a plugin, or a theme. And then all the strings that come from a specific source, they're grouped together. And I'll demonstrate to you in a second what it actually looks like. So then let me look at it again, go back to the site. So at this point, I can actually now start configuring everything, and configure languages and configure the import features. So under languages, which was added by Polylang, I can go to the languages section right here. And I already actually have configured previously few languages here. So I have English set up as a default language. This is what the star basically means here. Then I have German, Spanish, French, and Russian languages available as well. So in my posts, let me go to the post and just look at what I have in here. So if I click on the line here to show all languages, I actually don't have any translations for any of the languages here. This is actually what those pluses basically here mean, and this check mark means. It basically means that the article here, this original article, is in English, and it currently has no translations for any one of the other languages. So if you were to do it manually without our technology, then you'd simply go and you click on a plus, and you would actually like submit your order manually or through some other provider, copy it over, provide the descriptions of all the articles and the content of the article in a foreign language, and you'd have to do and maintain it for every change you make. So every time you modify the original article, you have to remember to always go and modify the other ones and publish them manually. So it's kind of a tedious process. Just looking at those pages alone, we have 6 pages here with the different national parks, and we have five languages, which is 4 additional languages here. So you can imagine that all those pluses need to be addressed. It's quite a lot of work. So you really want to do some kind of automation. And ideally, wouldn't you want to actually have a fixed system that you just need to focus on your original content in original language, in this case English, and then have all the other automatically populated for you. And that's exactly where Translation Exchange comes really handy. So let's actually see what it can do. So I'm not going to look at all languages. I'm going to just focus on English here because all the articles in the original is written in English. So English here automatically disappears, and all I remain here is with the pluses. Now let's go back to the site again just to see what it actually looks like. So basically, it's a very, very simple site. We're using a very simple theme here. It just has information about various national parks. For example, if I click on Yellowstone, it just simply has a very little paragraph here describing what Yellowstone is. So let's actually start with that. Let's translate Yellowstone article to a few languages and see what it's going to look like. So again, on our admin side, let me go to the admin side just to make sure everything is set up correctly here. So language has already been set up. I also need to go and not to forget to actually add to the widget section and add the language selector. So, okay, actually language selector is already here. So language switcher is something that also comes from Polylang. You can configure what you want this language switcher to look like. So when I save it, and once articles are available and published in that language, the language switcher will appear for the languages already published. So by default, you will not see any language switcher at the moment. So let's go back to the post again now. So now I'm going back to our dashboard here. And one thing that I actually did set up quickly before I started this demo is I went to my accounts and I went to the linked account section. This is actually a section we're still working, modifying the section now. We're actually building a full feature kind of like app store. Currently, we have quite a lot of connectors. You can see how many different integrations we have that you can connect to, and many of them are configurable. Some of them are using auth, some of them using API keys. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the WordPress section here. So, and what I did previously before the demo, I actually came in here already configured it. So all you need to do when you open up the linked account section and go to the WordPress, provide the URL of your WordPress site. You need to basically identify where your WordPress site is running. And it needs to be obviously externally accessible. If you happen to run a local version of WordPress that you want to basically test on your local machine, you can use systems like ngrok, or there's other options of how you can point and make your private AP available publicly so that you can actually access through our platform. But it's very important that this URL has to be accessible from outside so our system can communicate with this. And then what you can do, you can either provide your credentials, your user credentials, or you can create a new user under your WordPress. Just simply create a user account, give the user account rights to read and publish articles on your behalf, and then you can take the credentials of the user and provide them here. Very shortly, we'll offer other options of authentications. For example, there is an authentication option called auth, which you'll be able to sign into your WordPress with a couple of clicks. It requires different configuration, so this is the easiest option so far. So just the URL of your WordPress site, your username, and the password of the account, and you just save it. Now, so now that we set up the account, I can go back to the projects again. And in the projects, I can click on the Import Sources button. So once I click on the Import Sources button, all the account that I've set up will be available here as various sources where I can import information from. I'm going to again scroll down all the way to WordPress, and I'll click on the WordPress button right here. Now, so what just happened, I actually connected from Translation Exchange, I just connected to the Polylang site, and it shows me that it found one page, which is true. I only have one page in there. If I go to my pages, I should only see one page, which is about the site, and I should see the 6 different articles that I have here in English. It will only pull out the articles that are in the original language. So if I click on post here, I should see all of them available right here. Also, it detected that I have a bunch of different plugins installed. So there's plugins, 3 different plugins that I installed previously. And those plugins all have translation files associated with them, so I can actually import and translate them as well. And similarly, found all the different themes. So I was experimenting with different themes as I was putting together the site. So you can see I have quite a lot of themes installed here. But I'll show you, like once I show it after the articles, I can show you how the themes can be translated too. Our plugin is kind of quite smart. It can actually extract content and generate POT files on the fly from those themes, so you can translate them into any language you need. So, but for now, let's focus on posts. And I'll simply, for this one, I'll just select Yosemite, and I'll click on the import and continue. So what basically does, it just connected to the WordPress. I found the post, imported the post. And if I go now back to sources, I should see this post available here. You can view the list of articles as a list, or you can also switch to the tree view, which gives you a hierarchical structure of all the different elements here. I prefer the tree view because then it nicely organizes everything into folders, and I can manage it like this. So one thing I noticed here is that I have an article here, and it imported all the strings from the article. So what it does, it breaks them down by paragraphs. So it imported the title as a separate element, and then the article string itself imported as an entire thing. Our importer can be configured. So for example, in some cases where you think that you have some of the elements are repeated, we can actually break it down by sentence, so the sentence can be reused as well. Now, let me look at the Russian language here. So I actually happen already to have a translation for it. As Jonas mentioned before, we do utilize a joint translation, shared translation memory. And it seems like I already previously have created projects which I've translated this article before. So imagine if, for example, somebody comes in and translates a theme into 50 different languages and decides to share this theme translations in a public translation memory, then anybody else in WordPress community who uses the same theme will automatically get the access to the translations that were shared by this other user. So we have a joint kind of like translation memory that learns from all the different shared projects. But I'll just, as an example, I'll show you how the ordering process works here. So assuming that I didn't have a translation for this, I simply select the string and I click on Order Translations. This is my shopping cart where I can see what's being ordered. I can go with Proceed with the order. And when I proceed with the order, I'm given two different options. One option is I can request a quote from multiple different vendors if I decide to use professional translation services. So for instance, if you are part of our marketplace and the user decides to request a quote, you, based on your settings and your language pairs that you offer, the user will be able to choose your service and submit a quote to you, or multiple vendors at the same time. You'll receive notification, you'll be able to use our tools to provide the quote details, and then you'll be able to fulfill the quote and the customer can choose you. On the other hand, if the customer knows exactly the vendor that the customer wants to use, they can go from here. Customer can also specify the default vendor they want to always use, so they will bypass the step. So in this case, we have a list of various vendors we work with, but for this demo, I'm just going to disable professional translation services and just focus on machines. So we currently have 5 different machine engines, and we're adding a few more in the near future. So for this demo, I'll just simply use Google. And in this case, I only have Russian language set up. So I'll preview the order, and I will complete the order now. So it basically will go and retranslate what we already have translated. Now, our system is set up in such a way where it's perfectly fine in our system to have multiple variations of translations for any given string. So for example, in this case, it must have been translated previously by Google as well. But for instance, if translation would be different, we actually rank translations of, for a specific key. For instance, if you have a translation key and it uses multiple different options of translations, based on how often translation is being used by our customers or how it's being ranked by our translators, or how many times it's been validated by translators, the translations will change the rank, and the best translation will always appear as the preferred translation. So here is the order. I just looked at the order, and the order here is completed, so the string is in there. Now I simply go back to sources again, and I can view again that the source has now been completed, and I simply go and publish the translation back. So clicking on this button here, we'll publish it back. Just going back now to the site here and refreshing it, you will notice that the plus icon here changes to the edit icon. And if I click on it, you will see that the Russian translation will be populated and will appear in here. Now, so I just did one. So let's actually proceed and do all of them. And let's actually go and add a few languages. We have German, French, and Spanish. So I'll go to my settings here in the project as well, in languages. And I'll add the missing languages here as well. So I'll do German. Let's do German here, French, and Spanish. Now, our system supports approximately 700 languages and dialects. So pretty much every combination of languages are available in our system. Obviously, not every vendor that we work with supports all those combinations. So when you request a translation from a specific vendor, we narrow it down based on what specific vendor offers. So, but our system itself supports every language combination available currently in the browser. So I think we have Spanish here as well. So I'll use the Spanish language here. We also, as you probably can imagine, the mapping between our internal languages, we use the most generalized standard that's used by the browsers, but different vendors use different standards for how they map their locales. So we have an internal mapping mechanism to the providers and to various plugins and integrations. So for example, like Zendesk, for instance, they use their own mapping of languages. So we have automatic mapping between our system, generalized system, to Zendesk, and from Zendesk to us, and from us to the vendors you can place translation orders from. So the mapping will kind of go through our system, so you don't have to worry about how to map locales. We automatically map locales for you. So I have the 4 languages now, and I can go back to sources. Now I'm simply going to do the import sources again myself, and I'm going to go to WordPress now, and I will just go back to the posts again, and this time around I'll just choose all posts. I don't have to worry about that. Yosemite has already previously been translated or imported. If it's already in the system, it will just update it, so it will re-import it back. Now I'm going to go back to the sources again. Let me switch to the preview. So here it is, and now all 6 articles appear in here. And now let's actually do translations for all the articles. I can go, rather than going from article to article and order translation from each one, I'm simply going to go to the string section, and the string section will have all the different strings that were pulled out from the system. So I'm simply going to select all of them and place order translations from here. So I'm only doing it once. Then I'll proceed with the order. I'll again choose the vendor that I already know. In this case, I'm going to stick with Google, continue doing the Google translations. So here are all the different languages we have. I'll do French, German, Russian, and Spanish. I'll preview the order. We don't charge anything for machine translation orders, as you can see, I don't have to pay anything. But the cost, if you're using professional translation companies or translation agencies, we work with those as well, the cost will be calculated based on the pricing model that is supplied by those agencies. Now, if you use your own translators, so the order is being submitted right now, you don't have to use as you can see, you can see real-time updates of the orders. So here all the orders are completed now. You don't have to use the agencies. You can, let me actually see here. Yeah, so all the Russian languages translated here. So you don't really have to use the professional agencies. If you happen to use your own team of translators, or you are yourself offering translations, you can actually go in here and in team members, you can invite your team members here. There are different roles you can invite, proofreaders, developers, admins, and they'll come into the system. We have also groups. They'll be grouped by languages, by the roles, and you can assign them. You can basically, rather than placing orders to a third-party vendor, you can actually create assignments to your internal team that can start working on those assignments as soon as they receive them. Everything is communicated through our API and notification system. Now that I already have all the strings translated, let me go back to the tree here, and I'll just simply go here and I'll publish all languages for this article. And you see that I'm still doing it manually, and I'll show you in a second how this can all be done without doing it all manually for each article. Typically, you may want to sometimes review the article. So the way to review the article is simply, you can click on the preview button right here, and it'll show you the original one. You can also click here and choose another language, like for instance, Russian. So you can actually side by side compare the original one to Russian language. You can choose maybe Spanish here to compare other languages here. Actually, I have Spanish Latin America here. And then I can do German. So here's the German language here too. Or you can choose to compare. You can just go to the German here and view preview. You also can translate something in context. So for example, I can actually go here in Russian language, and I can do translate, which will give me in-context translation tool. But let me actually finish first. I want to show you the first publishing of all the languages here. And you can basically then right now click on any elements inside of the strings and translate them this way. So I'm just going to finish doing them all, and then I'll show you the automation. Here's the last one, publishing. And as you can imagine, if I go back to the site here and I refresh it all, you'll notice that all of them, except for artists, I guess I didn't import artists into the system, or didn't publish it yet. So all of them now are with a pencil, so all of them are now translated. But I did not automatically publish them. If you want to even do automatic publishing enabled, what you need to do is in the settings, you probably have seen there is a setting in there that you need to activate in my linked account section. I can go into WordPress here and also notify it. There's my WordPress. And I can notify it to automatically publish posts in WordPress upon release. So if I save it now, and if I publish the posts from the project, then it will automatically publish it as well, mark it as a release. Just go back here and check it out. Actually, I'll have to double check it. So it basically, probably I need to republish it and automatically publish the article for you too. But all the articles are there. Just to show you like that the articles actually are appearing in published version. If I do the publishing manually, I can go in here and I can just simply publish, click on the publish button. And if I go back to the site, you'll notice that the language selector will now be available. And I can switch now to Russian language. And you'll see that the Yosemite here, this is the first article, is now available in Russian language. If I go and do the same thing with other articles too, Let me go back to posts again. Besides the same, maybe I'll publish some other articles too. So let's switch to Russian language here. Let's actually do bulk action here. So let me see if I can just go in here with Russian. Oops, didn't click on it. Well, here's Russian. And then if I select them all, so I can publish it automatically for all of them. So let me actually, I can't really publish them all. So I basically will just have to go and publish a few other ones. Go back to Russian here. I'll go to English and switch to maybe Yellowstone here. Publish Yellowstone. Here's Yellowstone. And go back to some other posts. Let's go to posts again. Let's use maybe Glacier Bay as well. So I have a few articles here. And I publish it too. Now, as you can expect, the translations are not going to be 100% accurate because I use Google for it. And Google is, it gives you some translations, but not their best versions of translation. So here is I choose Russian, and then I have a few articles here that were already published, so in the Russian language as well. And then basically I can continue in publishing all the other languages as well. So as soon as publish other languages, French and other languages will automatically appear in the list of available languages for published versions, and you'll be able to see your content appearing in other languages as well. So we automate the part of exporting content, translating and publishing it back into your system. Now, but the question is, wouldn't it be great to do all of the stuff I just did and do it more of kind of like in a more automatic way? So I want to show you how to do this. First of all, I need to verify why artist didn't get imported. Let me actually come in here. So artist wasn't in there. Let me see if I can do import sources again. Let's see if I can get to WordPress. It's right here, the last one element here. Post. Yeah, I need to double check why artist is not appearing in there. So, okay, so let me show you some of the automation area of what we can automate with the system. So we have a separate location here called workflows, a separate tab. And what this allows us to do is to configure a trigger-based system that can do all the work for us automatically. When I click on this polyLink, I already basically created a new workflow. And if you click on this polyLink automation workflow, you can see that I already have a setup here, which basically the workflow, when it starts, the workflow can be triggered by some kind of action. In this case, in my setup, I want every time I save an article in original language, in English, I want the system to automatically detect the change, be notified of it, import the content from WordPress, or update the content. So it can, if it's a new article, it will import the new article, or it will update an existing article in the system here. Then I want it to automatically place an order in this case, I'm actually going to place order for all languages, not just Google, not just Russian. So I remove Russian language. So it will basically order all translations from Google, but you can choose another vendor that you prefer to order translation from. Only for the untranslated content, because I'm using machine translations here. I'll place an order, and once the order is completed, I want to get notified, so I'm going to send a Slack message to let me know that it's already done or it's failed. It will wait for a certain period of time for the order to be completed, and once it's completed, we'll also publish it right back. So I'm going to also remove Russian language from here too, so it will, oops, I think I need to fix this here. So it basically will, so it will automatically publish the content back to WordPress. So let's actually check this out and see how it works. And then also notify on Slack that this is done. The workflow obviously can be much more sophisticated. This is a very, very simple system. You have many different options what you can do here. For instance, you can modify this workflow and you can pre-translate everything using machines. Once the pre-translation is completed, you can then place an order for professional translation agency to do proofreading or a retranslation of certain elements, or you can omit the machine translations altogether, and you can place an order for with the translation agency, or you can create an assignment, so you can place an order with your internal team. They'll get notified, they will be assigned to the project, and once they're completed, you'll get to the next flow of the step of the workflow, where you can assign the proofreading to a different team, And you can build a workflow quite long, right? So it can be many different steps in there. And at every step, you can have sometimes time delay, and you can do verifications, and you can do all kinds of things. And we keep adding more steps in here of what you can do. There's even like ability to execute custom scripts. For instance, you may need to do some kind of logical check, and this is more like an advanced feature where you can do some kind of check of the workflow element. You can script it yourself, and then based on the check, you can take different branches. You can do a map reduce where you can actually do multiple tasks in parallel. You can maybe translate different articles at the same time. There's many different things you can do. There's webhooks. You can call an external API to your system when certain things can complete it. And you can trigger another workflow from this workflow. So the workflow system is quite sophisticated. And then once this is done, I currently have no triggers here. So I'm going to go and add a trigger here. So the trigger will be basically WordPress, called WordPress article change. Okay, when I save an article, I'll translate it, and then I'll trigger the Polylink automation workflow, and the trigger will be through one of my linked accounts, and in this case, it will be my WordPress account. Other linked accounts can also be triggered in the workflow. For instance, let's say you're using MailChimp, or you're using Marketo, or Eloqua, or some other system where you, for instance, save an email. You can, if the system that we integrate with allows triggers and callbacks, then you can set it up for the callback mechanism. We then identify it as a webhook in here. If the system doesn't allow, then you can do it on timely basis. For instance, like once a day, you can check if there are any email campaigns that you created that need to be translated. You can set up a trigger that will be triggered by on certain period of time, and will import all of your emails, translate them, and publish them right back. So you basically just focus on the original content, and everything else is automated for you. So I'm going to resume this workflow right now because it was paused. I wasn't really running it. So in theory, like right now that I have workflow set up and configured, and I can look at my orders. The only orders I have here right now is the 2 orders I placed myself earlier. So for instance, if I go back now to Yosemite, and I modify the Yosemite website here, Yosemite's section here, and I'll say, maybe I'll add a period here, and I'll say something like, this is the best park I've ever been to, and simply updating this this site, this post, it should trigger the workflow. So I can actually already see. You don't already see it on my side, on your side here, because my Slack is actually appearing on a separate section, separate screen. But I just received a couple of Slack notifications that said that the order has been submitted, the import has been completed. And if I go back to the dashboard here and I look at the orders again, I notice that there's already now a 3rd order that's already been completed for me. If I click on it, and it shows me that it imported a few strings here, a few string changes, right? And if I go back to the WordPress again here, I notice that if I go back to, this was the Yosemite site, right? So if I look at all the posts, and if I go to Yosemite and, oh, actually, it did create I think in this case, when I did the release, it actually created a separate site for me, but let me double check here something. So if I did Yosemite, if I click on Russian here, no, it actually, so it did import it, but there is I need to see here, might have been a minor glitch in there that created a new post rather than updating the post. But let me see again. It did, there is a new sentence in there, but I think it just got confused in terms of posting there. So this is something we'll look into shortly. But the idea is basically the system can be triggered and can fully import the data, translate the data, and publish it right back to where it needs to go to. And this kind of completes my demo on the WordPress site. So kind of back to you, Jonas.
All right, thank you, Michael, and great demo you had there. Appreciate that. What I'm going to go ahead and do is open the floor up to a few questions here. And by the way, I should preface this by saying I apologize. I think I had actually misspelled polylang on the original slide we had here. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that up one more time so everybody knows exactly how it is spelled. Apologies again to anybody who's at polylang and watching this. In either event, we have a few questions queued up here. The first one is going to be, looks like it's from Nura. She says, what is the average turnaround time to get a WordPress site translated using professional translation agencies? I can probably handle this one. It really depends upon the size of the project and the agency that you choose. But often by utilizing our integration connector, clients typically will see a reduction in the time to get their content to market by up to about 60 or 70%. So you want to check with your agency, and certainly if it's something that needs to be expedited quickly, see if they can ramp that up to push it to the front of the line for you. But in terms of on our end, it's really just a matter of a few clicks and then getting that content to the agency, as Michael had showed you earlier. The next one we have on here looks like it's from Jonathan. Jonathan works at a digital marketing agency. Let's see. It says, we have several international clients who translate WordPress content. Your connector looks great and simple. Do you have any sort of referral program in place? Yes, thanks for that. We definitely do, and I was going to actually finish up the conversation with describing that. But basically, we have a referral program where we compensate 20% of the cost of the annual subscription for any client you send our way who ends up purchasing a subscription. So by all means, yes, we're happy to compensate for leads and referrals. And if you have somebody in specific that in mind that you'd like to discuss, we can certainly talk about that offline. Let's see. The next one probably going to be good for Michael here. Comes from Katerina. She asks, can you guys translate themes and plugins? We have a lot of product descriptions on an e-commerce store.
Yeah, so good question. And I actually did, I want to come back to the demo here. Just give me 1 second. I'll share my screen again. Yes, we do actually offer ability to translate plugins and themes. As you saw when I was importing, let me see the screen sharing here. So basically, when you import, just 1 second, I'm just going back to the system here. Okay. All right. So you guys see my screen again? Did it come back?
No, it's not coming up on my end, unfortunately.
Okay, but I'll just explain. So basically, yes, when you do the import, you can choose to import the themes. Let me see right here. Oh.
There we go.
Okay. So yes, through the import process, you can choose to import plugins or themes right here. So the way it would work is basically, let's say if a plugin or a theme already has a POT file, and the POT file is basically it's a PHP special file that describes all the different strings that are available in that plugin or a theme. You can, like, even the polylang itself, for instance, I can click on the import feature right here, and we'll import the POT file from the plugin. If on the other hand the plugin does not provide a POT file itself, what we will do is we will scan through the code, extract all the strings, and generate the POT file for the plugin or for the theme. Then once you translate it, again, you translate it using the same exact features here. Here's actually a WordPress plugin polylang. It's actually already been imported. We can look at the strings. So here's the polylang plugin itself. All the strings from it have been imported into the system. You can order translation from professional translation agencies or do it yourself. And then once you're done, you can publish it back. So what we'll do is create a PO file, and then it will convert it to a MO file. Again, it's a special PHP file format, and we'll place it in a special folder inside of the WordPress once you release it back. And your plugin or theme will be automatically translated. So yes, we offer support for that. In terms of products and e-commerce, right now we're working on the integration with the extensions that provide e-commerce features to WordPress. So in the near future, we will have ability to import not just posts and pages, but also importing any type of custom definition for products and things like that. So it's coming up very shortly.
Awesome, thanks for that. Next one we have is from Oscar. He asked, can we work with a translation agency of our choosing? Absolutely, Oscar. As I mentioned earlier on in the webinar here, you can upload basically, or we can upload on board and train any agency to work within our platform within probably 30 minutes to an hour or less most often. So we're completely vendor agnostic. Again, if you want to use the same agency you're comfortable with, by all means keep doing it. But we do have the vendor marketplace if for some reason or another you're looking for somebody else who has a different language pair or that you need, or maybe they're a little bit closer geographically. So yep, absolutely, you can use whatever agency you want. Let's see, next one here comes from Evgeny. He asks, probably good for Michael here, our company is extremely concerned about security. Is an on-premise solution available?
Yeah, so our system can actually be deployed on-premise as well. So you can either use our hosted version, just like WordPress, or you can download and install our solution in-house. It does require some configuration. It takes about maybe few hours to a day to configure based on your needs. Also depends on what type of connectors you want to use, but it is available to run internally as well. We utilize Dockers if you're familiar with this technology, so we can deploy our system as a Docker container on any servers of your choosing. It's actually fairly easy. It's almost fully automated the deployment process. So if this is something you're interested in, please let us know, and we'll give you kind of an instruction of how to do it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. Let's see, the next one comes from Cindy. She asks, what languages or language pairs do you currently support? Cindy, we pretty much support almost every language pair imaginable. I've actually worked with another company previous to here, another translation platform, and to be honest, it feels like we've got almost twice as many. Even the most esoteric languages you can think of, like Swahili. I do believe I've come across Apache and Navajo. So if you think of it, we pretty much can support it. And of course, it would be the agencies themselves that would be doing the actual translation for those languages, but our platform is set up and geared to go for almost any language pair imaginable that you can think of. So yeah, we can definitely handle that. Let's see, got another one here from Andrew. We are using a technology that doesn't seem to be supported with an integration by your platform. How long would it take to build, and roughly how much could it cost? I can handle, as far as the cost, we'd really have to determine that offline and know exactly what your needs are, but maybe Michael can give you an idea in terms of the actual timing that it takes on, specific integrations.
So, our platform actually offers a very robust API. So the integration can either be done by us or by third party. You could even write an integration yourself, an integration connector. In the near future, we'll offer an SDK that you can use to start with to write any type of connector to our platform. But currently, through our API, let me actually bring it up under documentation. It will allow you to do things like creating projects, adding translation keys, loading up. Just give it a second; it's going to load up in a sec. So pretty much everything I showed you, all the connectors, authorization, authentication, everything is available in our API right here. So you should be able to write something yourself. In case that it's something that we would love to host ourselves and build ourselves, it depends on the complexity of it, depends on the type of content it is. But typically it takes a day, a couple of days to build an integration. Just pulls in content, translates, and publishes it back. So please let us know what specifically you're interested in, and we can give you the exact estimate of what is involved.
Awesome. Looks like we've got one more on here coming from Maria. Let's see. Our development team is going to be creating a brand new website later this year. May or may not be on WordPress or Ruby, which I noticed that you support as well. It's probably going to be on PHP or Node.js. I know that this is a little bit off topic, but is this something that you will be able to support?
Yeah, so we do have integration with the other systems, like what you just mentioned. I mean, you actually mentioned quite a lot of different technologies here, but we do actually support all the technologies you did mention. So we have SDKs for Rails, we have SDK for PHP, we do have an SDK for Express, for the Node.js Express, and we have SDKs for client-side options like Angular, Ember. We also have an SDK now for React, which is not mentioned here as well. So the SDKs integrations work slightly differently. They typically rely on or kind of like become fallback for the standard I18N frameworks. So if you're familiar with like Ruby on Rails, for instance, it does provide its own I18N engine. So when you install our gem into Ruby on Rails application, we become a backend for the I18N, or we can extend I18N. So by using our gem, all of your content automatically gets pushed to our platform. Just opening a page that was created in Ruby on Rails will automatically push all of the content to our system. And then when you publish the translation in our system, your Rails application gets automatically translated. So basically, you can actually deploy your Rails application to production, for instance, add a new language, translate to a new language, publish a new language, and have your Rails application in production appear in a new language without ever even having to restart the server, because we support this over-the-air distribution model that uses our content delivery network for distributed translations. So yes, we support all the different various integrations, and please let us know which one you're actually interested in. We'll help you out to set it up.
Awesome. Well, that pretty much looks like the end of the actual questions here. I'm just going to go ahead and put that slide back up again. Again, apologize for misspelling Polylang originally. But in either event, really appreciate everybody joining us today that had time. Again, we'll make sure to send out a link to a copy of a recording of this webinar. So if anybody left earlier or was joining late, you'll be able to watch this at a later time of your convenience. And certainly if anybody has any specific questions about any functionality or even pricing, we can take that offline. We do have pricing models to fit pretty much every budget out there. So more than happy to engage on a deeper level offline if you have any specific questions. But again, I really appreciate it. I'll pass the ball off to Tristan to say the final goodbyes here. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Jonas. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And that concludes our webinar for today. We will post this on YouTube and on our website shortly, and we hope to talk to you all soon. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.